Okay, we have a final panel. They cannot wait to be called on stage because they are already on stage. This is, you know this gentleman, it's Bigge, Swedish energy agency. We have Yme of Rockstart, Franka of Climate-KIC, Alex of Startupbootcamp, and we want to talk about accelerating smart green startups. I give, as a way of introduction, every one of you just a question: how do you accelerate startups in your organization? Why don't you start, Alex?
I did the spiel yesterday, but yeah, 90 days, highly selective program. 400 startups last year, we took 11, and then we put them in an environment where they're confronted with over 100 mentors. And the mentors bring their experience and their connections. And it's the bootcamp environment is just the analogy of being very intense for a short period of time. So if you ask the teams the value of the program, number one is the mentors, number two is the 9 other teams, because they're in this pressure cooker together. And then we conclude with a big demo day.
Okay, Franka, how do you accelerate startups at Climate-KIC?
Yeah, we have a European Accelerator program. Maybe just for those who didn't make it to the Climate-KIC session in the morning, we are a European network. We have partners from corporates and the leading universities that are part of our network. And we have created our own Accelerator program. And in Germany, we have the privilege to operate our own accelerator building or incubator. It's called Green Garage. And we give funding of up to 95,000 euros. We don't take equity. We have lots of high-level trainings, classes. So we don't have like a 3-month period as Startupbootcamp and other accelerators you might know. Our time or period of time when we support our teams is longer. It's 18 months, up to 18 months. Some startups go out earlier. And yeah, we have a network-based approach, I would say, because we are part of a European incubator network together with 5 other incubators from across Europe. And we partner with, we have strong partners here on the national level as well, TU Munich, Unternehmertum, TU Berlin, to facilitate our entrepreneurship activities. And we have European-wide about 200 startups supported so far. In Germany, it's 50, and at the moment we support 10, whereof 6 are in our incubator in Berlin.
Yme, how do you do it? What did you learn about doing it?
What did I learn? Okay, that's a very different question. But
okay.
So no, the format is basically similar to the one Alex just described at Startupbootcamp, with 2 minor differences, I guess. One is our specific focus on smart energy startups, and the other one is that we extend the first 90 days with an international program. So that's one of the reasons we're here with all the startups, and we visit other countries and cities after the first 90 days. But for the rest, it's very similar.
Bigge, you have a different model, Bigge, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different, I think, from some of the other ones. So Swedish Energy Agency, if you didn't hear my presentation yesterday, we fund startups in renewable energy efficiency. And we now have a portfolio of some 55 cases that we have funded over the years. And so part of my job is helping them accelerate their business a bit. And I think the difference is that we don't work so much with coaching, and we don't have such an intense program. It's more over a longer period of time. So for me, it's a lot about trying to shorten the sales and the lead times to getting an investment. And it's a lot about just putting them in contact with the right people, whether it's industrials or investors. I'm also fortunate enough to sometimes be able to acquire a budget and do things with the help of others. So typical example here, we got to go here, meet some investors, and then we can also put the companies in touch with the right customers with the help of the German Chamber of Commerce here. So yeah.
Okay, what are the most important things that startups really need? What kind of added value can you bring if you are an accelerator next to the money? What is most important for startups in general? And maybe in some cases, where did you really have an impact? Yeah, we can also change. I start with Yme.
Yeah. Well, if you look at startups that are part of an accelerator, then I think what is very important that they are, it kind of feels like obvious, but that they are open to the model of an accelerator. So sometimes during the selection process, we meet startups that have very strong, good teams, have a strong proposition, ID, business concept, but we still might not select them because as persons, they might not really fit with the accelerator format, where you get them to meet with lots of coaches, mentors, etc. And you need to be open, more open-minded maybe than the average founder in order to succeed then in an accelerator. So that's one of the differences between what normally a startup would need to be successful compared to one in an accelerator.
Yeah. Alex?
So biggest learning curve every founder I've noticed is sales. They're just shocked at how hard it is, and actually you can learn how to do it, but everybody's focused on product and maybe value, but the actual act of selling. So we're very proactive now on actually doing sales training, whether they're doing B2B or B2C. So we even do role plays and go like really deep, like how do you do a cold call scripting? Because whether you're selling to an investor or a customer or a partner, just the act of how do you get to, so that seems to be always a shock to the system how hard sales is.
But is that something you look at specifically in the selection process as well, or is that something that you're kind of fixing during the program?
Well, both. Yeah, ideally you get someone who's a born salesman, but those are rare and far in between. So no, but we just noticed that that was one of the things they really soaked up. So we do a lot of workshops, but the one on sales we have a guy actually doing role play, and but just selling seems to be this just people think, I know my product, I can sell it. No, you can't. I'm going to teach you how.
I would agree that it's at least it's almost always a bottleneck, I think, for companies, is the actual amount of effort they can put on sales. And for me, to be honest, I was quite nervous when I started, when my boss told me, I would want you to help out a bit with these portfolio cases as well, because I thought some of them had come quite far, and I didn't know if I could actually help out. So I asked all of them what they actually needed help with, and some of them said, yeah, we have all the contacts we need, and some of them wanted help on some international market. But I think what I've noticed is if you can provide relevant contacts on the right level, that they don't already have, it's always appreciated. Mm-hmm. If it's to a relevant investor or a relevant investor, it tends to always be wanted.
And yeah, Franka?
We made the same experience, that our startups really benefit a lot from our sales masterclass. We have Ken Morse from the MIT there, and he's a really special guy and very experienced, and he tells our teams how to do cold calls and how to do elevator pitches for customers and also for investors. And in addition to that, we have pitch trainings. So our startups learn how to present themselves to investors, and because investors, they they want to get to know special things, and not only the technology side, but also, of course, the business side. And our teams learn to focus more on this side. And I want to add one more thing. Our network is of great value to our teams. We really push matchmaking with industry. We have many industry partners in our network, and for the industry partners, it's interesting to work with startups, because for them it's kind of an innovation pipeline, and for our startups it's good because they can lower their investment costs, or they find their first customer or an investor. And we see that our startups being part of the Accelerator program, it gives them credibility, and it's kind of a door opener to corporate partners.
I don't know whether you noticed, but we have two types of accelerators sitting here. Yeah, there's one type of accelerator spending public money, doing good, and there's two private accelerators, mainly private. I think you have some public support from City of Amsterdam too, but you really have a business model of not only spending but making money, right? Yeah. And first of all, I want to ask you, especially the two private accelerators, is this business model working out already, or when do you know that it will work out? And is it sometimes helping you, or even the opposite, in finding the best startups? Yeah, and this really passes on to the public. accelerators because I can see that Climate-KIC and, for example, you guys, Swedish Energy Agency, you really have a great portfolio of companies, yeah, because it's multi-stage and they don't have to be in one location only, it's the whole country or even the whole of Europe.
Yeah, but I don't think one excludes the other, right? So I think they can be very complementary.
Yeah.
So it's not that one model might be better than another model. At least that's my opinion. Yeah.
So to answer on the does it help, I think it helps somewhat with the credibility that it's a startup itself. And I'm an entrepreneur, I'm in the risk with you. I've put in all my savings to make this happen, and it has to work, so there's a kind of potentially a pretty high level of motivation. On the success, we own equity in a bunch of little startups, and by the time the IPO get acquired, we hope to get a return. We've had 4 exits that have been either a tech acquisition or a client acquisition, so we haven't returned any money to investors. But we're 3.5, 4 years old, so we're still in that time range when that can happen. But yeah, the questions get harder as time goes by, right? For sure.
Yeah.
So that's similar for us, of course. I think with a little bit difference that the Accelerator is one of the activities of Rockstart. So we're trying to build a bigger ecosystem of all kinds of services for startups, of which the Accelerator is an important one. So yeah, it's a little bit different.
So I've worked in the private side, Clean Scandinavia network for investors. So I sort of seen a little bit that side of it as well. And I think it has its advantages as well. I sort of like that you're able to do it privately because you have you need to have someone to actually pay for what you do. And it gives you a drive to actually deliver value. And in a way, that's a luxury as a public actor, which means it's actually easier to get lazy, I would say, as a public actor.
Yeah.
You'll get your salary, you can acquire a budget, and you can do stuff. But to actually know that it delivers value to the company is easier if they pay for it. If they somehow they actually give away equity,
it's
actually
very clear accountability.
Yeah. So
do you have a bonus component in your salary
I don't.
being a public
No,
actor?
I don't.
Franka, a bonus component for you? No?
No.
You guys
Good
have,
idea.
of course, a carried interest, right?
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, for me, it's been about I actually talk a lot more to the companies now that I'm a public actor, to actually make sure we do something that's worthwhile and make sure that there's no private actor who already does it and maybe does it better, because I don't want to outcompete the whole something that is working. So yeah, I try to talk more to the companies to get feedback.
But I think maybe I think it's a very interesting model, and although Climate-KIC at the moment only gives out grants or scholarships, we are thinking of a new model because we want to bring in more diversification into our funding as well. And we want to, at some point, also get a financial return. And that's why we're thinking of, we're in the process of setting up a Climate-KIC fund. And so it's an option for the future as well, to just invest or just to offer our teams more opportunities for funding.
But that would be a fund that's for after they went through the different stages of...
Yeah, so they go through 3 stages, and that would be an option for, let's say, stage number 4.
Yeah.
So because we see, so when they leave our accelerator, of course, they are ready to talk to investors, and they already talk to investors in stage 2. But that's not enough time actually to finalize a deal. Sometimes they need more support.
And you are operating with different timescales, right? You have a 90-day program, you have a 90-day program plus an international tour, but your 3 stages altogether are up to 18 months, right?
Up to 18 months, each stage between 3 to 6 months.
And don't you sometimes think that a clean tech company or a smart energy company needs more time than 90 days to make a measurable big progress?
We don't kick them out. So, first of all, they can stay another 3 months in the environment. Typically, we get involved with fundraising. But, we did the London we used to, a couple of years ago, extra demo day in London and Silicon Valley tour. And you can fly through, it doesn't really help. So what we're doing is we're actually setting up a sister program in San Francisco. So we're going to have this bridge between the mentors and the teams and all that. We think that's, over the mid to long term, much better. And then we're trying to activate the alumni network, which is now becoming sizable enough to have critical mass. But I did learn, first program in Copenhagen, 3 months, get out, and the energy just completely died because you have this big milestone of demo day and then this kind of, the pressure goes. So we let them stay. But you can only be so intense and so hands-on for a limited period of time. So, you know, we have a clear start and finish in terms of the bootcamp.
How do you think about time scale and a time that startups need to really make progress? Bigger.
Also very different. So I also ran the Nordic Cleantech Open, a business competition, and then there we worked with the companies a specific period of time. And it was a bit frustrating because sometimes you'd initiate things and you'd realize this needs some time to actually materialize into something. And it's a challenge and a luxury for me now because some of the cases have a long time to actually becoming something successful because they need to build a plant or something. But there's always sort of a path that you can follow. You can introduce them to someone and you can see what happens. And that's, in a way, a luxury. Now I can, so here, for example, in Germany, I can start a program to actually internationalize towards Germany. And I can do some things this year, some things next year, and it's a bit of a luxury.
And for you, Ume, at Rockstart, and I think it's similar for Alex too, you did accelerator programs in another market vertical. It was more internet and mobile stuff. And now you feel like it's time for energy, but then you also realize you need to get to know new people, right? Because we learned it's all about who you know and the contacts you have, but you enter a new vertical and you need to provide new mentors and new industry contacts. How do you go about getting to know quickly these people so you're always one step ahead of the startups, right?
Yeah, so for this specific smart energy format or vertical, it is indeed very different. It's not funded in the way that the normal accelerator is, where you would typically have like angel investors or something backing it. In this case, it's industry partners that are backing the accelerator format. And basically what we did at the beginning of this edition was ask them, okay, who should be part of the mentor network? And we asked all those people who should be part of it. So we built a new mentor network from scratch, specifically for this smart energy vertical. And I think that worked out very well. The synergy between mentors and startups, between startups that are working in a similar theme works very well, at least in my experience.
I'm renewing about half. We're renewing about half the mentor pool, because half the problems for all startups are the same anyway, whether it's marketing or brand building or sales. So I'm not completely starting from scratch, but definitely we're bringing some new expertise. Some of it's driven by corporate partners, but some of it is just me headhunting. If this doesn't work, I'll make a great headhunter.
And for the private accelerators, do you have a feeling of competition that more and more accelerators are coming to the market, everybody looking for the most promising super early stage companies that you can accelerate?
Well, in general, definitely. I think in this vertical, that's limited so far. But.
I'd say, so when I started in Copenhagen in 2010, there were maybe 10 programs in Europe that could call themselves something like that. Now there's over 100. So there's more noise. But the good teams always have options anyway. I mean, whether there's another program or an investor or a market to go, they always have choice. So the amount of selling we have to do is pretty much the same.
I think that the number of incubators will decrease over the time. Because, okay, there's so many out there at the moment, but I think the startups, they can choose now, and they will choose the one which gives them the biggest value, and then in the end we will have some leaders. Yeah.
Again, this is different for me now that I'm with the public side. I actually don't want to sell it too hard, I realize sometimes. If they have some other thing that, some other trip, for example, some other initiative that is doing it better, they should probably attend that. Or at least decide for themselves. So for me, it's been a challenge actually not to oversell everything. Because when you're running a private initiative, you want to sell it. You want to make sure as many as possible join. So yeah, it's been a different challenge in that sense.
What is the motivation of the Swedish Energy Agency to put up so much money to help these startups? Is it only about job creation or doing something good, or what is the real motivation behind it from a public actor's point of view?
Right. So the official motivation is sort of to ease the transition to a low carbon economy, decrease the dependency on fossil fuel. But I think that the fact that that's for the funding, the soft money, to actually put that money into it. But I think after a while they realized that there actually is some work to do with coordinating sales effort and making sure they actually internationalize a bit faster. It's not only money, it's not only getting the research into a commercial product. You can actually, with pretty small resources, maybe make sure that that money is well spent. So I think that was the incentive towards putting me there.
And for you, Ume and Alex, you are now running your application period. You are sourcing startups, and you did it some time ago, and you will do it again, right?
Yeah, starting in August.
And it turns out that you are sourcing startups from all over the place, right? It's not only Dutch teams. You have to be
last
super
year,
international.
specifically for the Smart Energy program, it was about 130 applications from 39 countries, which is compared to the regular Accelerator program a pretty low number. So I would expect at least 200 to 300 this year, because it's now more well known in the industry, and we have the examples of the company that went through it. So we're starting again in August, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Of course, man. You are now appointed co-moderator.
Yeah. Are many of those ideas, I mean, do they start their company through the Accelerator?
No, so well, there's exceptions to the rule, but in general, they're not starting at the Accelerator. Right. So they already started on average, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same.
Alex, how are you reaching your startups? Are you already famous enough? Is it enough to have a cool website?
No. We're way more proactive because we went from generic in Berlin to this vertical, smart transportation energy. I actually put together a SWAT team. I have 4 guys who are actively hunting teams because we knew that it's so narrow that not everybody in that niche knows what an accelerator is, knows what Startupbootcamp is. So, we're relatively well known in the TechCrunch readership, if you will, on the next web, but these people aren't necessarily in that space. So. No, we've built a list of 700 startups now, and we're hunting them, and applications close next Sunday. Not this Sunday, the next one, June 15th.
Yeah, that's very similar.
And for you two, are the startups coming out of your accelerator, are they already fundable and attractive for VCs, or would you rather say it's more an angel type of deal, and then maybe a year later or so they come then in the horizon of a VC?
Well, I think it's the latter primarily. You've seen 6 of the pitches yesterday, so up to you guys to judge on that. But yeah, I think the latter. So angel phase, yeah.
Yeah, same. 3/4 angels, maybe 1/4 VC. And even if it's VC, it's going to be seed stage. And that's who we see as our customers. But a lot of VCs come because we want them to build a relationship with the teams for the next round. Yeah.
Okay, let's open it up. If you have a question, please raise a hand and wait for the microphone. You know the trick. I want to encourage Franka. What is the question you always wanted to ask Startupbootcamp or Rockstart? Now you can do it. You are appointed co-moderator too.
Are you delegating today?
Well, I met Alex a few weeks ago, and I think we were discussing the question whether we are mutually exclusive, and we already found the answer. We are not. And so actually, we found the answer already to my most important question, actually. So I think the startups coming out of the bootcamp would be perfect for us. They're open, our program is open for them, and also the other way around. Teams that we support, they are invited to apply for his program. So everything that helps our teams, we support it.
Would you help Alex promote his program inside the Climate-KIC network?
No.
Well,
we've asked that question in Holland to Climate-KIC and they didn't, so that's I'm just answering for you, sorry.
And in Germany? Because they are quite different animals, I have to say.
He has a few more days to go, so please help him. Yeah.
Well, he had a pitch event a few days ago, and we promoted it to our startups.
So I have a question. I was actually not thrown out, but I was rejected to an accelerator program myself when I started my last company. And,
really?
Yeah, really. And then the final verdict was that I was not coachable enough.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And I think actually they were right. It was actually good motivation. I thought they said it didn't have enough potential, but I got to explain why it had. But I think they were actually right. I'm a bit too anti-authoritative. Do you sometimes find this in entrepreneurs? Is there sometimes a resistance maybe to listening to the people you put them in front of? Or?
Well, not, yeah.
They'd get weeded out. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
through the interview process. I mean, I think Uma said it. We're looking for dry sponges that are just going to soak up all this value. If they come in thinking, I don't need advice, the mentors can feel it, everything goes sour. So,
If they're just looking for a stage, then it's not really working, but that was what I started with as well, yeah.
And Uma, you lost a startup on the way, right?
Yeah.
Can you say how this came about?
Yeah, that was interesting. So it was I think on the one hand, it was a very promising proposition. It got a lot of attention from many people in this specific industry that they were operating in. On the other hand, already at the beginning during the selection, there was this feeling that there might be a mismatch between founders. And when the pressure was put on, especially because contracts were about to be signed, customers were coming in, there was all kinds of shit coming up that was, let's say, under the radar, or was left under the radar, and we simply didn't really get it out during the selection process. And, well, I can write a book about this case because it's really, like, exceptional, amazing, crazy story. But, yeah, it's putting pressure on a team, on a startup, and then sometimes it cracks, and that this was a clear example, unfortunately. But it would have happened anyway, maybe a few years later, so I think for them it was good that it happened now.
on average, we have one team out of 10 where there's some sort of blow up, or a co-founder leaves, or because the pressure cooker makes, and that's fine, you know, get it out of the way, and then move on. We haven't had much drama, but there's always somebody who goes, oh, this is too hard, I've got to go, and that's fine.
And in your class, Uma, and then in your other verticals, how many pivots do you have if you have a batch of 10? How many teams are really making a complete strategy change?
Well, from this batch, we had, I think, 2 that changed their names. And definitely you could say that they made pivots compared to when they started. So I don't know if there's an average number that I could say, but in this case, I think at least 2 or 3 out of the 10, yeah.
So for us, it's changing because we're getting more and more mature teams coming in as our brand grows. So earlier, when we had very immature teams every other day, but now you get a team that's maybe got a prototype and some early beta customers. They're not going to do as radical a pivot, but we're not scared of that at all. Like, we've had a team who came in and got beat up by mentors for the first 2 weeks, and they said, we have to drop our idea, we feel really bad. And I said, it's excellent, you know, you've just saved everybody a year of pain. What are you going to do now? And they're still going, yeah. So
we had one team doing it a week before the demo day, so that's it was a very interesting experience for me as well. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I read the book. I can recommend it very much. It's called Launchpad, about the accelerator called Y Combinator, the most successful accelerator backed by a VC, Sequoia Capital. Would you like to have VCs backing you? This is one question, and yeah, let's start with this question. Because I've been asking a number of VCs who have been at this conference, are you actually allowed, in terms of your LP agreement, to invest in an accelerator? And they are all saying no.
No.
Most of them have, most VCs have fund-of-fund restrictions. They're not allowed to invest in other investors. But some of it do it out of their marketing expense. So plenty of VCs are invested in SeedCamp. We have a couple small ones. Basically do it for visibility and deal flow.
Mm.
No, yeah, agree.
Okay. Do you have a question? Anybody? Eva. Please run the microphone to Eva.
Thanks. So I'm curious. I'm sitting here thinking a little bit what Bigge was saying, that he, as an entrepreneur, doesn't have the patience to go through Accelerator program and be coached. And I'm looking back at all of the 20 investments that I've made. None of those CEOs would fit either. What type of entrepreneurial talents do you attract to Accelerator? Are they the ones likely to become big companies? Or will they remain small companies that will be acquired within a couple of years?
Yeah, so I think there's an underlying message, maybe I'm hearing it defensively, which is, if you're really, really good, you shouldn't need an accelerator. My answer to that would be, if you look at the number of mentors that we have that are high caliber people who all say, I wish I had had an accelerator when I started. I just would have been as successful maybe, but faster. So, but it's a personality thing as well. Some people think they don't need it.
I must say, to my defense, they did not really have any other mentors. It was just 2 employees then at that time. And I was more after the free office space. So it was, yeah.
I don't know if it works. There we go. I totally believe in the accelerator model. I think it's very helpful. I think most of our entrepreneurs would benefit from it. But I think when it comes to building big companies in solar or battery or nanotechnology, the entrepreneurs that go into that field, they leave their corporate comfort because they can't stand being told what to do. So they say, I don't care if you don't believe in me, I'm going to go ahead and do this myself. Therefore, by nature, they're not manageable, they're not coachable. So it just brought up an issue that I wonder, looking at it at your accelerator model, I would love to send all of our entrepreneurs through that because they need the discipline, but they wouldn't be coachable.
Well, but the thing is, you're sitting on their board, presumably, and you have some kind of advisory board role. And we never tell people what to do. If you can build that relationship of, I respect this mentor, this is somebody who can help me, then the dynamics change. It's not corporate, you don't report to us, it's your startup. So I think it has to do with how you do it.
Yeah.
And I presume you don't tell your CEOs what to do, you're saying.
So actually, you guys could do the VCs a favor by us requiring our entrepreneurs to go through your program.
Well, we're certainly, when we're talking about recruitment mode, I'm contacting VCs now and going, look, there's plenty of teams you've met in the last 6 months who were too early for you. Let us make them better so that they're ready for you when they come out.
Very
So,
good.
send us the good ones.
Yeah, no, good job.
Okay, let's call it a day for this panel. Thank you very much for your attention. A final round of applause for these wonderful accelerators.
Thank you.